Good morning, everybody. This is James Morris. This is Monday morning. Boy, the weekends just seem to get shorter and shorter the older I get. Busy weekend, making sure I take care of everything around the house, making sure we take care of everything around the bee yard, things around the shop, getting ready for Monday morning and making sure that, well, we have a show together. And so I have Frank Sundrum calling all the way from, I have no idea where he's calling from. Good morning, Frank. Where are you calling from today?
I'm in that faraway, distant land near the old Panama City Airport, which was a fond memory.
Well, remember, that used to be Frannon Field, I want to say. The original Panama City Airport was where
Yes.
Central Baptist Church is. Or it used to be Central Baptist Church. Now it's a Palm Bay School. That used to be the original Panama City Airport right there on Balboa and 11th Street. And I've had people tell me that all the time, the old-timers here. And around I want to say 65 or so, they moved out to where you're at now, the airport. And that was an airport there to about 2004, something like that?
Oh, no, 2010 or 11.
Oh, okay, is that when it was? I remember. Then they moved out to where they are now, out there in West Bay. About the best thing. But you're a pilot, are you not?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the biggest difference? I have people ask me all the time, how come they don't put car engines in planes? And I go, well, one thing I can tell you about most water-cooled car engines are made out of cast iron and are very, very heavy, whereas just about all aircraft engines that I know of are air-cooled, and I'm sure there's some water-cooled ones out there, or air-cooled or aluminum and very lightweight. Is that true, or can you elaborate more on that as a pilot?
Oh, yes. Most aircraft engines, actually, there are water-cooled engines, and there are a number of them. Most of them are more oil-cooled than air-cooled. But the real difference is this: car engines cannot stand what happens in an airplane, because airplanes are usually run. Car engines work very, very lightly.
True.
They don't work very hard at all.
No.
Especially modern day engines, which really run pretty much off idle.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
But airplane engines tend to run between 75 and 100% of RPMs, which are low.
All right.
They're not like 5, 6, 7, 8,000, but they are running all the time at that rate.
Right.
And most car engines just self-destruct at that level of stress.
Well, I know that if you try to run today's engines at 3,000 to 4,000 RPMs constantly, pretty soon you wouldn't have an engine. They're not designed to run that at a constant speed. Things would start to go apart. They're designed to go down the highway at 65 miles an hour around 1,700 RPMs, somewhere in that general area.
Yes.
Whereas a plane engine, you're cruising at, I'm just going to throw a number out, 7,000 feet, and you're probably doing 4,000 RPMs constantly. Just guessing. I'm just doing.
No, mostly you're doing somewhere around 2,500 RPM, but the engines are set differently. There are no gearboxes for the airplane.
That's true.
For the most part. So they are running, the prop is usually bolted to the crank, and they run that way, and they're built very, very differently, because the toughest time on an airplane is, first of all, when you start up, because everything is cold. But then when you take off, that airplane goes to 100%, and it is really pulling its weight.
We're literally, pulling its weight.
And then you back it off to about 75% or so, and then you tend to run at 75% of the engine RPM there. And automotive engines just cannot handle that.
Well, another thing that's different on automotive engines, and you're going to have to explain it to me because I've never studied it, is a dry sump. Where on a car you have an oil pan on the bottom, and all the oil runs down to the bottom, and you're staying pretty flat. Where that's not necessarily true when it comes to airplanes. They have a tendency sometimes to be leaning this way, or you could even fly them upside down on some planes. And don't airplane engines have what they call a dry sump, where where they get oil whether they're upside down or right side up? Is that correct?
Yeah. Many of them do, but on the other hand, cars have borrowed that technology. Most new Corvettes, for instance, have dry sumps.
That is true. That is true.
Have dry sumps.
Yeah, you were right about that. That's the technology they've taken from airplanes and put it into cars. Well, now, what's the advantage of dry sump? I really don't know.
Dry sumps is simply because you want to keep the oil somewhere else in a tank, because
Okay.
that crankshaft being so close to the bottom of the oil pan,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have the crankshaft running through the oil,
Mm-hmm.
frothing it up and mixing it up with air,
Making
because
foam. Yep.
air is a very bad lubricant.
Yes, air is a very bad. Matter of fact, if you did that, you'd probably make something look like dark mayonnaise if you could whip it up like that.
Yes.
Yeah, that.
Yes.
And that's because oil has anti-foaming agents to keep that from happening. And I see what you're talking about. You don't want that crankshaft whipping, and it's like It's like my wife showing me how to make mayonnaise. She takes eggs and oil and mix them together and beats them together, and it foams into this white mayonnaise. Well, engines can do the same thing, but it's not going to be white. It's going to be just kind of like you got water in your oil. That foam you get is what it looks like. I've seen that before, and that's not a pretty picture when people overfill crankcases, and try to run them. It gets oil goes everywhere. I mean, you get leaks everywhere, and I guess that's a good advantage of a aircraft engine. Do they carry more oil or less oil than a four-cylinder engine? How many quarts of oil would a four-cylinder engine, say, on a 152 or 172 or 182? I mean, because what, 6 quarts, 5 quarts?
Usually 6 quarts,
Mm-hmm.
a 6 quarts, sometimes 8, because you want that, because you cannot pull over to the side of the road and add oil.
Oh,
But
yeah.
here's the feature.
Right.
Here's a feature about airplane engines. While they have, if they have a dry sump, they tend to carry more oil,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also designed to run as low as 2 or 3 quarts without self-destructing. So that it does give you a margin of error in case you develop an oil leak,
Mm-hmm.
or it just burns up, or something else happens, or somebody forgets to top up the engine.
That is interesting. I did not know that. So we've all seen those movies on from World War II movies where they get hit by shrapnel and there's oil on the windshield and they can't see where they're going. I'm sitting there going, how could that be? But I guess that's because they have high pressure lines running everywhere, and I guess that's what happens. I don't know. But you say that they can run on a lot less oil than they're designed for, but not for very long. But I guess that's a good reason for us. What's another advantage of what's another thing that makes engines and aircraft different than car engines? We've talked about dry sump. I know they have carburetors, and I know they have fuel injection as well nowadays, both of them. But what are some other differences besides maybe being air cooled? You said there's water cooled ones. Do they have roller bearings on the crankshaft, or are they Babbitt bearings like on most car engines? I've never tore one apart, an aircraft engine, or are they both?
Well, when the first time I saw an engine torn apart,
Mm-hmm.
I was really unimpressed. An aircraft engine torn apart, I was seriously underimpressed.
Really?
Because they were almost agricultural. I'm going, where the heck is all this high technology and all this nonsense? Because they were fairly simple that way. But what they've done is you don't just come up with a new engine and throw it in an aircraft. It has to be tested.
True.
It has to be tested for life. And the biggest difference really is aircraft engines, at least the 4-cylinder ones, the 6-cylinder flat sixes, not the turbines. The turbines are different.
Correct.
They tend to be rated for anywhere between 1,800 hours and 2,000 hours before they have to go in for an overhaul, or at least go in and be checked. 2,000 hours is about it. Now, that may seem like a fairly low amount of time. But if you take 2,000 hours and you multiply it by 100, you get a pretty interesting number.
That is
100 miles by 100 miles an hour, 150 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You get a pretty interesting number out of it. Okay, that can take you a lot of places, and more because the liability laws. They now if you buy an engine from a Continental or Lycoming, two of the more prominent manufacturers, they will not only tell you that engine is probably after 20 years you want 20,000, 2,000 hours, you want to get it looking for an overhaul or get it checked out very carefully. But they will also tell you that an engine after 10 years, it's completely out of warranty. They will not warranty it any further. It doesn't matter whether you've flown 2 hours or 20,000 hours. 10 years is what it is.
I was reading yesterday in the paper, we have a gentleman that is 80 years old that's flying. He still flies around here. And they showed him coming in, landing in his 1950 plane. And I'm sitting there thinking about it. We're talking about a plane that's 70 years old and is still flying. And I'm sure it gets checked out. I'm sure they have. I know to be a mechanic on an aircraft is completely different than being a mechanic on a car, because you have checkoffs and you have all these different things you have to do. All nuts have to be wired and torqued, and like you said, you can't exactly pull over the side of the road and put a nut and bolt back in, it falls off. So everything has to be exactly correct. There's no margin for error, so to speak. You can't drop a nut in an engine and just leave it there, because you may turn upside down and that nut may go where it shouldn't go in the engine, causing a problem. So things are a lot more, I'm venturing to say, are they more accurate on plane engines than they are on cars as far as maintenance?
Yes.
Okay. That's one. Yes. Okay. That's one of the things that people ask me all the time. How come you don't work on airplane engines? Because I'm not certified to work on airplane engines. I don't know how. I know how to make things work, but I don't know the rules. Like I think you have to, they have these tools out there that you have to wire nuts in there, run wire through after you get them torqued down to keep them from slipping. I mean, there's just so many things, so many little details, because like you said, it's so exact. You don't have room to pull over on the side of the road when you're 5,000 feet up and add a quart of oil or top off your brake fluid. You have to do all that stuff way before you start driving. And it's just, and I know you're a pilot, and I was thinking about you this weekend when I was out at Sandy Creek. I was watching these warbirds. They were practicing doing takeoff and landings, touch and goes, and they were flying together in formation. I thought it was kind of neat to see that happening. Old technology that had been modernized. These are old planes that they've been updated, with fuel injection. That way they get a little bit better fuel mileage. And it was kind of interesting to watch. And I was thinking about you, and I said, I need to ask him about planes because you know more about them than anything. Now, we got about a minute and a half left. What do you fly? Do you fly 72, 52, Cessnas, Bonanzas?
Well,
what do you fly?
I learned to fly in a Cessna 150, and a really, really great airplane. And then I moved to a Grumman Tiger, which I flew the heck out of. It was a much faster, 180 horsepower low wing, which I enjoyed immensely. Right now, I don't have an airplane, and I keep looking at them and trying to figure out how my checkbook and an airplane get along together.
That is amazing. Having an airplane is not a cheap proposition. If you think having a car is expensive, and you think having a boat is expensive, people that I know that have airplanes go, you ain't seen nothing till you own an airplane. They get very expensive as far as the maintenance, because you can't do some of the maintenance yourself, can you? I mean, some of it you just can't do. You have to have.
No, you can't. The basic stuff you can do. You can change the oil. You can grease your hub bearings and stuff like that, maybe change the brake pads, but beyond that, everything else has to be signed off by an inspector, a mechanic, or an inspector.
Well, see, that's the thing that's different. We're up against the clock. We've got to go. Frank, I enjoyed talking to you. I'm going to talk to you again this Thursday. I think you're going to call it 6:15. And if you're out there watching the show and you like it, tell our sponsors and give us a call right here on Ask the Master Auto Technician, 763-0555 with your automotive or maybe a plane question. We'll talk to y'all in a few more minutes. We got Scott Hobbs calling. Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
If you want the best deal in town for tires, you need to call Baytown Tires at 873-8900.
Hanson and the guys at Baytown Tires take pride in serving Panama City for over 20 years. Baytown Tires on Highway 98 in St. Andrews. All service work backed by a nationwide warranty.
Water is too powerful to fight alone. Mr. Router Plumbing. Sink, shower and toilet emergency drain services.
All right, welcome back to our Monday morning show. Like I said earlier, the weekends are just too dadgum short. I got Scott Hobbs calling out here, and he's got an event coming up that he might want to be talking about. I believe it's going to be on July 19th. He doesn't even know I'm going to talk about this. Good morning, Scott. How are we doing this morning?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing very, very well. I was reading in the paper here. Mr. Reuter is having an event that you're sponsoring, and it's going to be on the 19th of July, I believe. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, a little cross promotion maybe? Let people know about what Mr. Reuter is doing?
I guess I'm not aware of that one.
Okay. Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Dr. Shane's going to be emceeing it. You're going to be doing a fundraiser. I think it's going to be for Bethel Village. I may be wrong on the information, but it's going to be something y'all are putting together, your marketing department, and y'all are you're trying to make a difference in Bay County. From people that you're just trying to make a difference. And that's one of the things y'all are, because you're the gentleman plumber. Not only do you treat people's homes like you would your very own home, you also try to you try to help out where there's needs in communities, like making sure that, people are taken care of that can't take care of themselves. And this event through Bethel Village, which is right next door to James Auto Center, is what caught my attention. And I said, this is going to be a pretty neat operation they're going to be doing, and I wanted to bring it forth. But since you don't know much about it, we'll talk about something a little bit that you do know. And one of the things we're talking about is that financing. I've had more people talk to me about financing to get major plumbing work done. And they didn't think it could be done. They said, I don't think it can be done. I need to have a bathroom completely gutted out and over again. I said, call Scott Hobbs and see if they can do it. Is that something y'all do, complete bathrooms?
Oh, absolutely, sure. And that happens a lot. Folks will have an emergency come up, and we talk about preventative maintenance and how if you take care of things and do the small, simple preventative maintenance things, and of course your item, your water heater, your sewer line, whatever the case may be, is going to last for years and years. But unexpectedly, sometimes they do fail, and it may be when you're least expected financially. Maybe you're on your way to planning a vacation or something like that. So that's why we have the financing available. It's an outside source, but it's specifically for the home services. So we're able to get people financed, on the basis it's a home repair, it's for your home, and it's helped a lot of folks.
It must have, because people were talking about that going, I didn't know they could do that. And I said, because I called one plumber and they said, look, you need to talk to your bank or a loan institution. We don't offer that. And I said, well, you need to call Mr. Reuter, because I know they offer that. At least they can get on their cell phone right where they're talking to you and put in the application. And normally within 30 minutes to an hour, you'll have an idea if they can take care of you or not, as far as financing on that part. They can always take care of you. But that's just something I wanted to bring out, because I had a guy this weekend said, I had an emergency in my house and I listened to your show and I didn't pay attention. I said, what do you mean? He says, Scott Hobbs is always talking about know where the water shutoff is. Well, I didn't know where the water shutoff valve was. I sprung a leak and my water ran for 3 hours before we got someone to my house to cut it off. And I went, how much water did you have? And he said, over 3 inches of water throughout the entire house. And I went, this is not good. This is not good. And he literally did more damage. He said, when I first had it happen, if I could have been able to cut the water off, I wouldn't have had any damage at all. I just had a little bit of water. But now I got to have my whole bottom of my house ripped out from the carpet all the way down to the baseboards. And I went, well, I don't know what to tell you, but next time, not only listen to Scott Hobbs tell you where the water is, but actually go out there and find out where it is. That's something y'all do all the time, don't you? Go out there and show.
Oh, sure. And just add to your confidence level. Make sure it works.
Yes.
Know that it works.
That's the thing. Sometimes they turn and don't work. I have found that out in my own house. I turned it and said, look, I can turn it off, but it just keeps turning. It don't stop. It just keeps turning and turning and turning.
Right.
Go ahead.
Or it's froze up and it won't turn.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of like the old expression, use it or lose it. It has to be used on a regular basis, not every day, but at least once a year. Turn it on, turn it off, make sure it works, make sure it shuts completely off, and that way you have confidence to know that when it does something happens, that you can shut it off.
Well, I tell you what, now that's one advantage on the backflow valves that they put in. The businesses have to put in those backflow valves that got the valves on them that you can shut water off and on. That is the one advantage, because my shop has been here so long, and James, the piping that comes from that main valve on there that right before the meter, that thing is so old, I'm afraid to touch it. It may break.
Sure.
I'm going, I ain't touching that thing. But if we need to cut the water off, we can just go right out here to where that backflow valve is and just quickly turn the knobs on these backflow valves and shut off the flow of water. Now, it shuts it off on my side of the well, of the meter. That's the only problem. If it breaks, between my meter and that valve there, I'm still responsible on the hook for that water. So, like I said, you need to know how to turn the water off. And let me ask you a question: if the valve is questionable on the city side, should you call the city and ask them to come check it out or replace it if it won't turn off? Is that something that is their responsibility, or is it responsibility?
It is.
Okay.
On the city side of the water meter is their responsibility. And you can probably talk to most municipalities, and they're going to ask you not to touch their valve.
Right.
That you should have a valve on your side of the meter. Now, I would say just in practicality, if your house is flooding and you can't get someone there fast enough, you may want to do what you need to do to protect your home.
Absolutely.
But stay away from their valve at all costs. I know some municipalities will respond quickly and come shut the water off for you. But yeah, let them work on their valve or take care of their valve.
Well, I know when 4th of July rolled around, municipalities were not working, and when water pipes broke, it took a long time for they got a plumber out there to shut them off. But we're talking about this water valves. You're saying it's best to have one between the meter and your house. But do most people have a valve between the meter and the house? I'm just asking. I don't know. I know I do on mine now, but do most people now have them?
Well, new construction, yes. Newer homes in the last several years, you're probably going to find a valve either at the meter or closer to the house. And again, that's something that you want to know ahead of time, which end is on. But some of the older homes, we'll find that there's no valve anywhere. Some of the older homes like down in the cove, and it's an old galvanized line that runs up to the house. There's no valve. They just tied straight on. And,
and if it does have a galvanized valve on it, I can just about guarantee you it don't work. The stem is frozen, and the gate is either stuck in the open position. You can't draw it down or to cut off the water. So if anything, you may not want to touch it there, but you might want to call y'all and have y'all come over and put a valve close to the house where they can walk out the door and turn a valve in case a pipe breaks. Because these older model houses, they got pipes that could rupture when you least expect it. I mean, even the newer model houses, but especially the older ones do, because, they've gotten, the arteries, so to speak, the pipes have gotten corroded due to, you're galvanized. And I'm sure if anyone's ever opened up a galvanized pipe that's been in Panama City for any length of time, they're just about completely closed up, are they not?
Oh, they are. It looks like a clogged artery. You can't see daylight through them. It's amazing.
That is amazing, and they still run. That's the amazing thing. People are still getting water. The reason I know this is because I own a couple of rental homes, older ones that were built in the 50s and 60s, and that was the first thing we had to have done was have new water lines run because the old galvanized pipe coming from the city was to the house was completely, if you had 60 pounds of pressure, you were lucky to have hardly any pressure at the house. It just would barely come out. And now y'all can take care of that by using going up in the ceiling? Is that how y'all do that?
We do, and it depends if it's an off-grade house, a house that's built up on piers.
Yeah.
We'll run the pipes underneath, but the slab houses we'll typically run an Upanor system. So we have a main line, and then we have one manifold, and then we run like a home run to each fixture. So you're minimizing the joints. It's just a really good product. That's the way my new when we built our house, it's piped the same way. So it's very reliable and dependable.
Well, see, so you have less joints, and so you have less things that could fail. And it's like running I know this is kind of a simplistic way of saying it, but it's kind of like running a separate water hose to each area. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Sure. One continuous pipe, right?
But this water hose is it's not like a soft rubber water hose. This is a hard plastic red or blue, what you call a PEX pipe, PEX pipe. Is that correct?
That's right.
And this is relatively, I'm not saying, I don't know if it's new or not, but this technology is new to me, but it's been around for a while, but it's a proven piping to take to replace PVC, to replace copper, to replace galvanized, to replace that that gray stuff from years ago, polybutyl, whatever. Yeah, that stuff. That's some nasty stuff. Anyway, replace all that. And this stuff, believe it or not, is relatively a lot cheaper to replace it this way than it is to put copper back in, to put galvanized back in. And you can do, I've seen y'all do in one day, y'all can completely redo a house as far as getting water into it. I'm not saying all cases, but I've seen y'all do it before in one day. In the morning, by that afternoon, the house was replumbed with water.
That's right, sure.
And it's amazing.
Sure, a small conventional home,
yeah.
we can knock it out pretty quick. We have crews that do this on a continuous basis, and they've gotten really good at it. Minimal invasive damage. We have a little bit of sheetrock repair, but very, very little. We can do things behind the cabinets and in hidden places that you won't see the actual damage. So it's always a good product.
That's what's so amazing about it, because after we got, the biggest thing we have to do after we had our piping redone, we had to go and have re-insulation blown up in there because, well, when you get up there, you kind of tromp that insulation down and you need to get more fluffy insulation because we have these wonderful, such mild summers down here in Florida where it doesn't get hot.
Right.
But I was very, very impressed with it. The work y'all do is amazing, and I want to recommend if you have not had your piping inspected this year, or if you've never had it inspected, give Scott Hobbs a call at 763-2001. Call up a time for them to come by and do a cursory complimentary check, and then you might be able to see how they can be of better use to your family and keeping preventive maintenance up in your house. Scott, we got about a minute or so left. What would you like to tell people about giving you a call?
Sure. As always, we try to mention this often. We're always looking for good people that want to learn a trade. It's a very good trade. Sustained my family for a few generations. And if you have good people skills and mechanical ability, we're looking for you to start a career with us.
Now we're not talking about a career that's a dead-end job. We're talking about a career that, well, you can go from the bottom floor, so to speak, or from like maybe say digging a ditch, so to speak, but understanding what you're trying to do, to where maybe one day you could actually have your own Mr. Rooter franchise.
Absolutely.
And this is
sure. And I tell everybody that I interview, I don't want you to come here to be a lifetime helper.
Right.
My goal for everyone that comes to work for us is to become a plumber, and if you want to grow to become an entrepreneur and a business person as well, we'll help you along the way there too.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's what Mr. Rooter does. He helps this community grow. So give Mr. Rooter a call. Scott Hobbs, 763-2001 today, and tell him the Master Oil Technician sent you, and we'll be talking to you, Scott Hobbs, next Monday morning. Bye-bye, everybody.
Part of what I'd like to let you know is what we do and how we work our system. Basically, we've got about 700 stocking dealers scattered around the 15 counties here in the Big Bend area of the state. I run a fleet of trucks, vans, and what we call hotshot vehicles to deliver to our dealers quickly so they can help service you as fast and efficiently as they can. Provide timely and efficient service, and we're there to take care of our dealers, who in turn can take care of their customers.
Summer is here and the days are getting longer and hotter. Call James Auto Center for a free cooling system evaluation and consultation. Give us a call, 850-763-0555 today.
Fix it right, guaranteed. Beep, 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 yeah!